Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about how to optimize your processes with no-code. My name is Jens Lantz, and I'm a business developer here at Zitac. Soon we will meet my colleague Kenny Vigersand and our customer Dag Peterson at Husqvarna. But first, I will talk a little bit about no-code and what values it brings to the business. Because values there are. Gartner recently predicted that low code and no code will account for 70% of application development within enterprises by 2025. And that's quite a statement. 70% is quite a lot, and it's just 2 years away. So let's talk a little about why this is, because there are a lot of factors that contributes to this, of course. But one factor, when I look back, let's say we look back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the distance between the developers and the stakeholders and the end users were almost absent. There were no really engagements or interactions between developers and end users. It was mainly the manufacturers of the computers that developed the application themselves, like mainframes and IBM. Then came a lot of development bureaus, and it was possible to build some more tailored or more at least domain or vertical specific applications. And for the past couple of decades, we have also seen much more of agile methods and dev teams. And of course, the distance between the developer and the end users has shrunk. And it's been a much more engagement between the end users, stakeholders, process owners, and the developers. But with no code, that distance has become almost none. And that's a very interesting piece. So I will give an example of how we actually can come to that conclusion. Let's take an example. You have a great idea. Someone came up with a great idea, or you need to discuss something, a change in the business flow. You need to address a problem, whatever, and you get together in a room to discuss that topic. In that room, there's a lot of engagement, and you want to catch that energy. Well, with no code, you can bring a no-code developer into that room. And it's not just because it's quick to develop in no code, but actually all the participants in that room can participate because they can understand the development process of no code development because it's graphically represented. So they can actually contribute and come up with ideas just because they can follow the flow of the no code development. And this is a very, very new thing that you can develop together with the stakeholders in real time. So, but how much of a developer do you need to be to develop in no code? Well, you don't need to be a full-fledged developer. You don't need to know a specific programming language or syntaxes, but you do need to have some skills in data formats, in variables or data sources. It can typically be someone with certain skills within Excel, but of course it can be a developer as well with a business perspective who can see the advantages of building application this rapid. So how competent is a development platform of no code then? Well, of course that differs. A lot of platforms are suited or has a purpose for a limited scenario, like to enhance a no-code, on-offboarding scenario, or to enhance a procurement process. A lot of the large companies, SaaS delivered, like ServiceNow or Salesforce, they also say that they have low-code and no-code development on top of their solutions. And they have. but in most parts, its main purpose is to enhance the experience of the main purpose, like incident management or CRM system. The platform we are showing here today and using is called Decisions. And it's a platform that has no pre-purpose. You build everything from scratch, but you can also build whatever you want. And in order to do that, it needs to have the breadth and the depth to actually accomplish everything. And I will just guide you through some of the main modules of Decisions platform. It all starts with integrations. And the integration engine within Decision is very powerful. A lot of companies actually choose Decisions because of the integration engine only, because it has the capacity to actually replace a very expensive other type of integration engine. And you can connect to almost any system using standard APIs or SQL or calling for RPA or scripts. So it's very competent. The next thing is the workflow manager. In the workflow manager, you actually build the process flow graphically. And you get a set of a toolbox with thousands of objects to build whatever you want. And it can sound a little bit scary that it's thousands of objects, but you will find it's quite easy and it's intuitive to some degree as well, anyway. But you will find, and it's really quick to build a process flow in the workflow manager. The next module is the rules engine. And this is also one of the modules that many companies choose Decisions for. Especially we have seen in the financial sector, like banking, insurance companies, pension funds. They need rules, really good capability of creating business rules. It can be anything from simple if-then-else rules to complex correlated data with matrices that will build very complex business rules for great decisions. The next module is the UI development. There are 3 different UI development areas within Decisions. One is for end user forms. It can be an active or static interface for an end user to populate, to select, to trigger something, and it's all built with in the same way as the workflow manager. You have a toolbox of UI elements, and you have a canvas, and you can build and design it exactly how you want, and it's really quick, and it will become a responsive web page. The other 2 areas of developing UIs in are the dashboard creator and the report creator. And all of those will become HTML responsive web pages. If you don't want to use those UIs because you have a preference of using SharePoint or Power BI or ClickView or whatever, of course, all the information that needs to be built in those systems can be accessed from the developed service in Decision via Open API. The next module is a module that needs an application in place to actually activate. Let's say you have a process flow that it's a service, a customer service that actually spans over several departments of your organization. That process has certain SLAs in this example. And the process mining agent will analyze the result of that process flow. It can be something that can be enhanced by make a change in the software, but quite often it can be a result that you actually get a visualization of issues in the business, so you can make organizational changes to optimize the service. So this is a quite comprehensive enterprise platform, and it's got a lot of functionality to build whatever you'd like to build. And just to summarize some of the advantages. Building with no code, or free your mind and build whatever you want. I mean, it's like a software lab. You can go in and test things easily and quickly. And if there's value to continue. And if you see no value, or if it's impossible to do it, well, you just stop, and you haven't paid a lot of effort into it. And it's rapid. It's really rapid. In many cases, it's 10 times ordinary development time, quicker, 10 times quicker. And it's also embracing the agile methods, because in the no-code development, especially in decisions, you have small modules that you build, and for each little module that you build, you can debug instantly. You can press the debug button, and you will get the results immediately. Or you can test a set of objects or the whole application to debug the whole application. And one thing that I think should be emphasized on is also that since it's graphically represented, and it's possible for much more people to actually understand the code and where the different pieces are and make changes. So if someone needs to make a changes of a value because it's not relevant for the business that you're actually providing to the market right now, someone with skills in Excel or someone with IT expertise can easily go in and find where to change that value. And this means that you actually own your intellectual property in a way that you don't when you just have been handed over 1,000 pages of code. So I think that's an important thing as well. But that's all about that's what I had around the no-code development and the modules in decisions. Now we will invite Dag Peterson from Husqvarna. Welcome, Dag.
Thank you.
I hope everyone sees everything here. And Dag, Husqvarna is quite well known here in Sweden, and I know it's a global company, but can you please, there might be some in the audience here that doesn't know about Husqvarna. Can you tell us a little bit about Husqvarna and your role within there?
Yes, for sure. Yes, I hope you know about Husqvarna already, but we are a very old company. We are 334 years old now, and but still try to innovate. And sometimes people say that we are the oldest startup company in the world, and I think that's good. We are like 15,000 employees globally, and we are divided into 3 divisions: Husqvarna Forest and Garden, Husqvarna Construction, and Gardena. And we also have the main brands is Husqvarna and Gardena, and but you have maybe also seen some other brands we have in the group, like Klippo, Flymo, Jonsered, etc. I think we have like 20 or 30 brands in the group in total. Yes, and I work as a digital business architect and in the team of digital business transformation team, and we helping Husqvarna to in the journey of the digital transformation. I also work as a product owner for our connectivity services, so I work a lot with IoT and that kind of stuff.
Well, interesting. Thank you. And another question is, when you found decision, what was your initial need when you went out for the search for a no-code platform?
It was actually from the IoT space. We looked for that. We find out that we needed some orchestration and like working with workflows. We also had the need of a rules engine. So we started investigating in different platforms with that capabilities. And I think we had a list of 20 platforms and scoped it down to 3, 4, and then finally make our decisions to use decisions. We like that product, so we continue with that.
Okay.
But it was from the IoT area, actually, from the beginning.
Okay. Interesting. So I wasn't aware that you evaluated so many platforms, but very interesting. Can you tell us something about your latest product or projects where you are using no-code?
Yes, the latest project is actually we have started up a few new ones, but the one that we have developed something in the latest project is incident management system. It's also connected to the IoT part because it gets all the arrow codes from the auto movers, the robotic lawn mowers that we have, and then it goes into decision platform. So that's a kind of special integration with the streaming capabilities there. And then those things or the arrow codes comes into the flow. And we also use the rules engine. It's a very important feature in the platform. And then we also have an integration with different kind of external systems like ServiceNow. So we actually can create a work order directly from decisions, but automate based on the arrow codes. Okay,
interesting. And I know that it's a global company, and there's probably quite a lot of lawn movers out there. So there's a lot of messages, I guess.
Yes, there is. We actually filter it out because we handle a lot of. I think we handle. I don't know exactly, but it's 60, 70 million messages for each second. So it's a lot. But we filter it out before that. So decision take care, but about those messages and it capable of doing that. But so we have in this incident management system, we take care about like 500 movers for a special project.
Okay. So when you show your work around in Husqvarna and you show it to other departments, do you get any response from them? How do they react when you show them the no-code development you have done?
Yes, I mean, when we show this, and especially the flow and also the rules engine, they got a lot of ideas. And I think it's, I mean, in all divisions, I work with from a group in the group level. And so we started to use it in Forest and Garden, Forest and Garden. But now we see also that Gardena and construction want to use it for different projects. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what you're actually saying is that when you show the graphical representation, it actually inspires people to come with new ideas and such, so that they want to discuss the process flow.
Exactly. So they are engaged in that, and they see and understand the flows. It's easy to understand and explain about what the program actually does. So.
Okay. What would you say are the biggest, the biggest benefits with building in no code?
For us, it has actually been something that we didn't think of from the beginning. It actually for quick testing and also try out, because it actually fills a gap between the ideation phase we have or process and into the development phase. We can easily test something. We can easily test an integration with an external partner. That normally takes a lot of time. But now we can do it in just a few hours. So it's really powerful there. Then it's also for the rapid development that you already mentioned about, that we can come up with new ideas and products even faster, and services faster. And I also see a benefit with the joint development together with the business, as you also mentioned before, because we can engage the business part and they understand much more than we had with the core development.
So and time to market has decreased a lot, and
yeah, exactly. It's we time to market for those new ideas we can come up with and bring the new services faster to the market. So yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Dag. I hope you will stay during the whole event here, because there will be a question and answers session in the end here. And for all attendees, please feel free to write your questions.
Yeah,
I think
great.
There's a chat window to do that in, right, Gustav? Yeah. So, and now we will welcome in Kenny Vigersand.
Thank you, Jens.
Please tell me, tell the audience about your role and background.
Yeah, so my name is Kenny Vigersand. I have been working at Zitac with automation in one form or another for since 2006. So I've been in the game for quite a while. I've been working with Decisions, the Decisions platform, for the last, what is it now, 4 years or something. I had the pleasure of working with Dag and Husqvarna Group with their project as well. So I've been tasked here today to show you some of the Decisions platform. I will do some live development, but also I'll show you some examples where I was inspired by, well, the larger projects on Husqvarna to fetch IoT data, and I've done something similar, but on a very much smaller scale at my home, basically. So I'll show you some examples there.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. Even though there's a lot of existing customers attending, I see, from different parts of Europe, but it's very interesting that we can show something that is similar to what, or at least representative for what Dag just told us about.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can share my screen here. All right. To begin with, I will open up the Decisions platform. It's a 100% web-based platform. So we develop our flows, rules, all the parts that makes up the Decisions platform. We'll develop them through the web interface, and also there, the web interface is where you consume the data. Okay, so Decisions as a platform, you can run it as a Linux Docker container, or you can run it as a Windows service. You can run it on-prem, or you can run it in the cloud, your private cloud, or wherever. So it's very flexible on the options on where to host it. It's also a quite simple application to maintain. The Windows installation, for example, is one installation. It contains its own web server, and it doesn't have many prerequisites. So it's a very simple solution to get going with. If we look at what I have on my screen here, this is the end user portal of Decisions, or the portal, as they call it. This portal is used to publish pages, reports, and other data that end users might be interested in. You can also use it as a platform to start up your processes by running forms, for example. I know that there are a lot of portals out there already. You might have a SharePoint, maybe you have an IT portal of some kind, or HR portal. So you could also break out everything you see on these screens. You can break them out and well, inject them in your existing portals. Or you could use the front end of your existing software. Let's say use SharePoint, and you only use decisions for the background for gathering the data or presenting the data to the form. I won't talk much about the end user portal. We will head straight into the designer mode. This is where you develop all your processes and all your integrations and all your stuff. And to access that we click in the left bottom corner where it says switch to studio. This you can do if you're assigned as a developer or a designer, as it's called in Decisions. And the very basics of Decisions is you work with projects. So I have my project called electricity here. If I want to create a new one, I can click add folder, create a designer project, and I'll call this demo. So now I created a new project. My work now is to start populating this project with different parts of the solution. And you can see up here in the upper row, I have the option to create flows, rules, forms, reports, data types, integrations, etc. I will only have time to touch a few of these, but if it's something we need to go through, it's the flows. The flows are the basic building blocks of Decisions. I would say you couldn't create a project without a flow. So what is a flow? I'll create a blank one real quick. So a flow is a kind of orchestration of steps, as they're called in Decisions. Your point is to get from the start to the end. Some processes never reaches the end. Some processes might have multiple ends. And depending on what's happening in the logic, different end steps can be reached. To develop a flow, I will use steps from the toolbox on the left here. This contains many thousands of steps out of the box, and depending on what modules and features you add to Decisions, you will get even more. You can even create your own without coding, but you can also, if you want to, create your own steps by coding. If you have a C# developer or someone who knows a little bit of C#, you can quite easily create your own steps. But I would say 99% of the times it's not necessary. You can build basically anything with the steps that are already in here. So what kind of steps do you have? Well, I have some favorite steps, some logging, fetch, create data, run a rule, run a subflow, etc., send an email. I want to do a super simple flow here right now. So I'll go down to data and I go down to numbers. The data category is where you manipulate data. Could be manipulate strings, numbers, lists, whatever. But I'll do something super simple here. I'll take two numbers and I add them together. So I just pick up the step and I drop it on my line and it will be added to my process. All steps has a properties pane on the right. This is where you define your inputs to the step and the outputs. The inputs, of course, is the values you send into the step, and the outputs is the result of, in this case, addition of two values. So I could either just type in constants, 1 + 1, and if I scroll down to the output, I can name the output. I call this result. Okay. So now I have a flow. It's not a very complex flow, but I can run it. So I'll just click debug. And this is a very nice feature of many no-code platforms, but I really like the one in Decisions. Is this graphical, well, where we show the results in a graphical way, and we can always check on each step. I can right-click them. I can see the input and the output data. So I can see that into this step, I sent 1 and a 1, and the output is 2. So in this very simple example, it makes no sense. But if you have a large project and you're running a lot of steps and you have a logical problem somewhere, I mean, the data you're getting out of the flow is not what you're expecting, then it's quite easy to go in here and check all the input output and find out where did I do something wrong in the logic. In this case, I just hard-coded 1 + 1. A more real example would be to use variables, and you can, in a flow, for example, add inputs. So you click the start component and you have the flow input data. And here I can define instead, let's say I'll define a variable called number 1 and number 2. Then I get to select the type, and in this case, I'll select a decimal. The same thing for number 2. So I have 2 numbers that are being sent into my flow. And instead of hard coding in this step, I'll pick those variables up. You can see I have 2 given inputs here now, number 1 and number 2. So I'll do, instead of a constant, I do select from flow. And I pick up number 1. I'll do the same for number 2. And if I debug this flow this time, you'll see that it asks me for the values for the inputs. So let's say I want to add 1 and 2. Yeah. And I run the debugger. We check the output. I get a 3. So that seemed to have worked. I can also output data from the flow. And then I click the end component and I tick the result. That was the name of the result from my addition. So I click result and it will be added as an output here. So now I created a simple flow that adds 2 numbers. I mean, not super complicated. The reason why I did this was also to show you that how you run these flows. So I mentioned you could use the portal, and there you can publish like a flow that executes and maybe shows a form. So we have the show form step here. So that's one way, publishing it to the portal, or maybe publishing it to a third-party portal or whatever, where you're expecting a user to be shown a form and they can input data. But decisions can also publish their flows as REST APIs. So you can, from other systems, maybe your in-house developed systems or any other system that supports connecting to REST APIs, you can do that quite simple by just up in the right corner, choose which integration type you want to use. And in this case, I select API service, and I'm fine with that. I just click OK, or sorry, done. Now this flow already has been published as a REST API. So I can easily click view, and we will be taken to a Swagger-like interface where you can try out and see how to integrate with this REST API. So I'll actually go to the test tab. Here we can see the different methods that this supports. You can control this, which methods you want to show. But in this case, I'll use a post. It shows me example. Yeah, I'm expecting a number 1 and a number 2. So I'll say number 1 is 3 and number 2 is 5. And if I run this flow, you will see the result as a JSON output. So these are the very basics of decisions. You have the flows, you add your steps. There's thousands of steps. Some of the steps here are very unique for, there is a step for creating a ticket in ServiceNow, for example. But you can also generate your own integrations. So let's take the ServiceNow example. Yeah, we have a catalog of pre-created steps in there. But sometimes, I mean, ServiceNow is a huge product. You can't possibly create a step for each of the different functions there. But a good thing with decisions is you always have these wizards and stuff to help you create new steps that, for example, connects straight to the ServiceNow REST API and access any functionality they have there. I think you have the very basics to follow along a little bit when I'm going to show you this example. And as I told you, this example is something from home. I will actually show you a small PowerPoint screen, just to give you some background info here. I have a electricity measurement device connected to my incoming electricity, my phases. I have 3 phases in my house, and I'm measuring them each separately. This device sends a reading every 3rd second. It measures the consumption, or actually it sends the consumption to a message queue via the MQTT protocol. MQTT protocol is a very popular protocol for IoT devices. It's very lightweight, it's quick, maybe not super complicated, but in my case, that's totally fine. So I'm using the MQTT protocol, and it sends these messages to a RabbitMQ broker. So RabbitMQ is a message queue. It just takes these messages, and if a consumer connects to it and fetches the messages, the queue is emptied, basically. So our consumer in this case is decisions. So I'll go back here. I can show you an example. I have opened up. This is the MQTT Explorer. This is a small application where you can connect to MQTT queue and see what it looks like. So in my case, actually, I will reconnect so we start from scratch. And here you can see that beneath Z wave, energy meter, and 50, that's the ID of my energy meter, I get 0, 1, 2, and 3. These are all electricity readings. The 0 we can ignore. That's basically a total of all phases. But if I break down here, I can see that my phase number 1, if I go to the right here, I can see that it's currently consuming 14 amperage. So it can display, I can configure my device to send, I want the watt hours or whatever, but in this case I'm after the amperage, because you'll see in the example that I'm going to do together with you later that I want to make sure that I'm not going over the maximum rate of my main fuses. So here you can see all the messages going into the queue. If I go into decisions, I won't go into details about this, but you can basically set up a message queue. So here I have my phases message queue, where you can define which host to connect to, what queue to fetch messages. I also have a message queue handler, which basically defines what should I do when a message arrives. And in this case, I'll just run this phases handler flow. So that's a little bit about the setup. So currently this decision service is picking up all these messages. Every time my energy meter creates a message, decision consumes it. And I can see that by opening the global debugger. You saw me in the earlier example where I ran a debugger for a specific flow. I can run the global debugger. That shows every flow that is running on this decision server. And I wouldn't recommend to do this on a very busy server, because this can be extremely much. But I'll just turn it on and turn it off. And you can see that I have my phases handler flow, which I showed you. I won't go into the detail what this is doing, but it's converting from a binary format to a JSON format and then extract the data from it. What's interesting is this subflow called receive amp data. This flow, first of all, I need to know what phase is this message for, because all the messages for phase 1, 2, 3, etc., they're all thrown into the same queue, and I'm checking here which phase am I listening to, or is this message for. And as I told you, I don't want to bother about phase 0, because that's the total. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm running a rule that checks, is the phase 0? If it is, then I'll just skip to the end, and I don't care about this one. So let's check another message here. Okay, so if I check the input output of this rule, it says that it's currently phase 1, and I compare it to 0 because I want to see if it's 0, then I go through and I ignore it. Then I'm doing some conversion from the timestamp. My electricity meter is sending a large number that contains the milliseconds since 1970. So I created a small flow to convert that to a date that I can work with. And then I check, do we have a reading for this phase already? If I don't, I'll create a reading, and I will show you what this is. But this is something called an entity decisions. An entity, you could compare. It's much like it's a database row, but an entity also gives you something decisions called the entity framework. So out of the box, you will get CRUD options: create, read, update. So you can easily, from decisions, create a new table, but also add steps that will add a new row to this table. So that's basically what this does. It takes the phase data, saves it to decisions as an entity. So if we go and look what this looks like, so I'm saving these readings to a specific folder that is called electricity readings. And here you can see a long list. I have 5,732. You can see that this is increasing all the time. Every third second I get another one. And these are all readings. The reason why I save them is because I want to create a report and see how did the amperage change over time. And maybe I want to see the highest reading I got or something. And as I told you, you will get CRUD options, create, read, edit. So I can right click any readings here and select edit. And I can see exactly the data that is saved. So I have the phase 1 data, phase 2, phase 3. Okay, so I saved all the data to my database. Now I want to present it in some way. And then I created this page. Pages in decisions are quite nice. You can easily use them to create dashboards like I did right now. So this dashboard contains of a report. This takes all the readings with phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 data, and show them on a chart. So I grouped it by minute. I took the average reading. I can actually show you this report. You can at any time click on any point, and you can see what is the data behind this graph. So here I can see all the readings that are received for each of the phases. I can see the average value for this minute. These all was received the same minute. And before we go in and take a look what this looks like behind the scenes, we also have 3 tiles. And as you can see, they are updated in real time. So every time I receive a new message, this is updated. So I have prepared at home, I have what is it, water heater, a boiler, or I'm not sure about the English word, but that I hooked up to one of my smart plugs, so I can start the water heater. And don't you worry, I have someone at home that are informed. So I click on here, and we should see that phase 1 should, you can see it fires up to 14 amps immediately. So if I go ahead, I just want to show you some changes in the chart as well. I turn it off. There we go. And it goes back down again. So just that you can see that this is nothing we're faking here. All right. So this is what we have in place for now. I will take you to the page because I think it's interesting to see how you design your pages. And we have the Faces dashboard. This is the editor you're using to create your dashboards. So down here where the report was, I can set the behavior and I can configure which report to show. I can configure, do I want to show the data in the report, or do I want to show the chart, etc. I also have the tiles up here. These are quite nice. So since my three phases are so similar, the only thing that differs is what phase do I want to show the data for. I created a subflow, so I don't need to create the same functionality for each of the tiles. I created a subflow and I just send in the phase, the specific phase. So here's the phase 1. If I go to the next tile, I'm sending in phase 2. And if I look at the flow, this is quite simple. I'll fetch the readings. I only pick up the latest one, and I want to make sure. Oh, I want to fetch the correct phase data. So I pick that up, and then I use a step called create tile data. And these tiles can be created programmatically, quite nice. So I can do a very dynamic tile that looks different. If the amperage reading is over 14, I could make it red, for example. So that's all that's doable with this create tile data step. All right. But for this demo, I want to create a small rule that notifies me about if I'm getting closer to my maximum amperage of the breaker. So let's create this really quick. I go into my flow and the receive amp data. This is the flow we saw in the debugger earlier. So if I want to add something here, let's say I want to do something simple. I just want to check if any of the phases has a reading over 16 amps, then I want to send a message. So what I would do is run a rule, place that here. I'll connect all these arrows to this rule. And here I can pick or create a rule, and I want to create a new one. And there are different kinds of rules in decisions, but I will use the most simple one, the statement rule. A statement rule is like a if then else rule. So I call this should notify. A rule is a little bit like a flow that you need to, or you can provide input data. So I'll create input data and I'll say I want to have the amperage. And that was a decimal. And I'll throw in the phase here as well. And that is a string. So here I can create my rule. First of all, I need to select my data element. So I'll do if amperage, and I click next. And decisions is data aware. So it detects that this is a decimal that I'm sending in. So I'm getting verbs that are for, well, numbers, basically. So I can check if it's greater than, equals to, etc. So I'll say if it's greater than or equal to, next. And I set it to 16 because that is what I want to check for. If it's higher than 16, then I want to notify someone. I can do a combination. So let's say I only want to monitor phase number 1. Then I can click phase here. I create a new data element and phase. Next. And equals. You can see that the verbs are different here because now I'm working with a string rather than a number. And then I can say 1, for example. Just like with flow, I can debug this. So I can try, okay, amperage is 15 and the phase is 1. Then you can see that, okay, 15 is not greater than equal to 16. So this is red, and you can see that else is marked. So it will return a false. If I increment this to 16, you'll see it will return true because 16 is greater or equal to 16 and 1 equals phase 1 is equals to 1. So if I close and save this, and now my rule, the should notify rule, returns a true or a false. And if it returns a true, then I can send an email and notify me that one phase is over the maximum rate for the main breaker. If it's false, I just ignore it. And yeah, that's all the time I have. I will actually connect this amperage so we can see payload and value done. Send email. I'll remove this for now. Save here. We open the global debugger. Now you can see that my updated flow is here. Let's see, that was the 0. So let's take this one. There we go. I can also check and see if my rule was run, and you can see that, yeah, it equals to false. So that's very quickly on how to develop in decisions. This is only a fraction of what you can do. And if there's some other user cases that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me or Jens, and we can set up a demo that is more pitched towards your needs. And we can show you more in detail as well. But hopefully I can show you this example I threw together in a couple of hours, 3 hours maybe. So the development is very quick. Now I'll hand over to Jens now.
Well, we hope you get the impression of what no-code brings, what kind of value no-code brings to the business. It's inspire a lot of participants to actually contribute in the development. It's quick, and you can easily test ideas, and you will own your intellectual property.